Good morning, friends. Welcome to the beginning of the third book in the Hope trilogy. The book is called Love Stories and Wars. Chapter 1, Lord Bonson's Choice. As Keel's eyes closed, Bonson hugged his lifeless corpse and wept. As in a flash, memories of his friend filled his mind. The day he met him with the rest of the companions on the original journey to Lassa Creston. That was just over 2 season changes ago, but it seemed like a lifetime. He remembered Keel's stories. He remembered the way he himself had dismissed him along with the others as riffraff that were beneath him. But he could not help laughing at Keel's funny stories. Keel, the least likely of these companions, had given his life for Bonson. This thought reminded Bonson that he was alive, and quick action was needed. Should he go after Alva? That would mean challenging the Center Pass single-handedly. This would mean certain death, but Bonson did not fear death. Was there another way? Perhaps he could scale the side cliffs and find a way around. If he could catch the wagon by surprise, perhaps he could free Alva. If Alva was alive and regained consciousness, they too could certainly find a way back into Lassania. But no, Keel was right. Alva had given him an order, and this was not it. As Bonson stood up, with a look around, he could see that the Dochmonians had taken he and Alva's horses. Luckily, Bonson had not been riding Lation. He was almost completely healed from his wound, Bonson had ridden him, but he had not wanted to take him near potential battle just yet. Sverion's horse was still there, so Bonson draped Keel's body over him, mounted, and began to gallop to the next lowest camp. As he mounted, he noticed the pain in his right hand for the first time. It was swollen, filled with cuts from Sverion's teeth, splintered cheek, and jawbones, and all his knuckles were out of joint. When he reached the next camp, he immediately sent most of them to take position at the high camp, telling them that Jagrok and Tombus would come with relief as soon as possible. He did likewise with each camp, sending them up one level. Messenger birds had been sent down to the main camp to give news of what had happened, but the information had been kept private for the moment. Since Bonson was alive, Nira suggested that Salia not even be told yet. She reasoned that Bonson could explain it in person when he went to see her. However, an account would need to be given to the others first. So they told her that he had had a slight delay, but he would come to her as soon as may be. When Bonson rode into the main camp late that evening, Hellel and Diron met him. They saw to it that Keel's body was taken by the appropriate men, and then led him to Hellel's tent to give account of the events. In addition to Hellel, Diron, Pinsor Prior, Nira, and Hope, were present. Philon was not there because he had returned to Grenvir to better see to the broader needs of the kingdom while the stalemate lasted. He had promised to come back if battle began again. Nira and Hope had left little Alsala in the care of Balsasaner and Lavender Eyes. Those two had become good friends, and Balsasaner would visit Lavender Eyes as often as possible when he came to the camp with supplies. Both men were quite fascinated with the baby and were glad to spend this time with him. They were in the company of many warriors from Lassa Creston, so the ladies knew that Al-Salah would be safe, or as safe as he could be, while they attended the meeting. When they entered Hellel's tent, Bonson sat in a chair, looked around at everyone, and said, "They've got Alva." This was already known, but he said it as though it were a confession. Then he gave them a detailed account of everything that had happened, including his last conversation with Keel. They all listened attentively. When he told the story of his last fight with Sverian, Hope noticed his damaged right hand. As he continued the story, she poured some water into a basin, bathed the blood, and popped the knuckles back into place. Because of Hope's healing powers, none of this hurt, and by the time he was finished speaking, his hand was sound. Pensor's face wore a look of suspicion all the time Bonson was talking. When Bonson had finished, he said, "It was my fault. I'm sorry." "It was Sverion's fault," Hope said. "Yes, but I trusted him," Bonson said. "Alva trusted him too," Hellel said. "Alva trusted me. I should have known better," Bonson responded. "We all should have known better. I believe Alva's father once said, 'Everyone knows better after the fact,'" Hellel said. "The thing I don't understand," Pensor suddenly interjected, "is how you were able to get away when Alva Dene was captured." "He explained that already, Pensor," Hellel said. "I heard him," Pensor replied. "It was quite a chance series of events. They shot Alva with a poisoned dart, but kept him conscious under a net, and no one alive to validate it. Like he says, he was the one who trusted Sverian. Alva wouldn't have had Sverian in such an important place if it weren't for his word." "Pensor," Bonson replied, "I do hold myself responsible, but there was no treachery on my part. Ask the first men who came to the camp after I left. They would have found everything as I left it, the net and Sverian's body." "You could have left it any way you wanted," Pensor replied. "He's telling the truth, Pensor," Hope said. "How do you know?" "I can tell." "You didn't know Sverian was a traitor." "I never had a single conversation with Sverian, and you've never doubted me on anything before." "Alsalal said, 'There's a first time for everything,'" Pensor said. "This is nonsense, and we don't have time for it," Hellel said. "Lord Hellel, I've always respected you, but I think we need to make time to discuss this," Pensor replied. "Lord Hellel is right," Diaron said. "Lord Bonson was instrumental in winning our most crucial battles. He's been with Alva all the way, laying his life on the line again and again, and if he really wanted to serve Dachman, he'd have gone to the Dachmanon with his trophy." "Sverian helped in those battles too," Pensor said. "Not like Bonson," Prior said. "Nira," Hellel said, addressing her, "what do you think?" "He is telling the truth," Nira said. "Then we all trust him," Hellel said to Pensor, "and so did Alva. You need to let this go so we can get to business." "Do we really know Alva's alive?" Diaron asked. "He's alive," Hope said. "I'd know if he wasn't." "So what do we do?" Bonson asked, looking at Hellel. "This must be discussed," Hellel said, "but I am not in command." Bonson looked at Pensor. Pensor was silent and angry, but he shook his head. "No." "Alva was very clear on this point," Hellel said. "Should he fall, you would lead the army. I know he is not dead, but it works the same if he is taken prisoner. You were his chosen successor." "That doesn't seem right," Bonson said. "I'll do my part, but surely you or Pensor should be in charge." "Alva was very clear," Hellel repeated. "Wasn't he, Pensor?" Pensor did not respond. "Pensor?" Hellel repeated. "Yes!" Pensor blurted out. Then he rose and put his face toward the door. "That was what Alva was telling you at the end," Hellel said, ignoring Pinsor. He told you to lead them to victory. He knew something could happen to him, and that was why he spent so much time with you at the end. He was telling you how. Bonson was silent while he pondered this. Then he said, Pinsor, will you turn and face me? Pinsor turned and looked him in the eye. We've never quite been friends, Bonson began, so I'm speaking to you as a man and as a soldier. I made a mistake trusting Sverian, but I have never been dishonest in my life. I did not betray Alva. I wish nothing more than that he were here, but he is not. No, he isn't, Pinsor interjected. Whether you want him here or whether you don't. He was in your way from the beginning. Now he's out of it, whether you really changed or not. I don't understand this hostility, Pinsor. It seems unjust and unreasonable. Help me. You don't understand, eh? No. We've served Alva together in many battles. You could always fight, boy. I never said you couldn't. And hating Dachmon ain't the same as loving Alva. Think real hard. You've said some things that just don't go away. Alva's father? Bonson asked. Also Law the Butcher, Pinsor replied. I think I see, Bonson said. You didn't hear a conversation Alva and I had the next day. I told him I had nothing against his father. My problem was with him. We settled it. Like you say, I didn't hear the conversation. I wish I'd thought of it. I wish I'd apologized to you, to everyone, for that. I certainly do apologize, but I know you'll say it's a little late. I think that Alcala Dene was the 26th was the greatest man who ever lived, with the possible exception of his youngest son. All right, Pinsor said. You want to have this out, we'll have it out. I can accept your apology about my general, though Alva isn't here to confirm what you just said. But there is still the fact that Sverian was close to you. Are you telling me he didn't show any signs of treachery? Bonson put his head down. After the first battle, he suggested that I should lead the army instead of Alva, he replied. Ah, Pinsor said. And what did you say? I made him swear loyalty to Alva, and Aknanian never breaks his word, so it is said. I thought he would keep his word. I was wrong. Did you tell Alva this? Yes, the next morning. I offered to tell him who the man was, but he wasn't worried about it. I should have insisted. And why, after that, did you keep him so close? Why did you let him have so much reign? I thought I could change him the way Alva changed me. You ain't Alva, Pinsor replied. No, I'm not, and thinking I could be like him was my greatest mistake. Your real mistake, Hellel interjected, was thinking Sverian was like you. Alva could help you change because somewhere deep down you were willing to change. Sverian wasn't. That still leaves the question of what to do next, Diaron said. Yes, Bonson replied, but I don't think Pinsor and I have finished settling this. As he said, we need to make time. You got everyone else in your pocket, Pinsor said. Though he had a great deal of respect for Pinsor, Prior was made to stand up at this comment. It was too much for him that Pinsor was suggesting that Hellel himself and all the others were being played by Bonson. But Bonson put his hand on his shoulder to make him stay seated. Pinsor, Bonson said, bypassing the disrespect of his last statement, I need you. I don't think Alva was right to place me in this position, but I serve Alva Dene to the death, and I mean my death, not his. If he wanted me in this position now, I will obey, but I need you. Pensor drew his sword rapidly, and this made everyone in the room jump. But Bonson did not flinch. He chose you, Pensor said, and I serve the Danaes to the death as well. To think that after standing with all Salah against Diaphon, I'd spent my last days in the service of a great Huron baby. He threw his sword at Bonson's feet and kneeled before him. He put his head down for a split second, then looked up into the young man's eyes. You're the Danae now, and I hope you don't let him down. So do I, Bonson said, but I'll never be the Danae, and he isn't dead yet. I know time is pressing, but so much has happened so fast that I can't think straight. May I take a night to see Salia and get some sleep and think through our course? You give the orders, Hellel said, but I certainly see wisdom in what you suggest. It will take them longer than that to reach the Huron capital, and you are exhausted. They agreed to reconvene early the next morning and left Bonson, and Bonson left to go and see his wife. Chapter 2: A New Dawn. The sun was just rising when Alva woke up. His arms and legs felt extremely cramped as he opened his eyes and saw a metal grate beside him. He could hear the sound of wheels rolling, and in a flash he remembered what had happened. His neck had been pierced with a dart, and everything went black after his last words to Bonson. Get back to Lassania. Lead them to victory. Alva's hands and feet were both in shackles, and they were chained together so that he couldn't straighten his back. The fact that it was dawn meant that he had been asleep for nearly 9 hours. Was Bonson alive? He thought. Was he here? He moved about to get himself into a sitting position and have a look around. The wagon was accompanied by many armed men on horses. They were just coming out of the Camden Pass on the western side. They were on the way to Huron. He was in a wagon with a steel grated cage surrounding it. Bonson was not there, but Hendren II was sitting on the other side of the wagon, looking at him. Good morning, Alva, Hendren said. Good morning to you, Alva replied. I'm glad to see you alive. I would have assumed they killed everyone. Everyone else, I think, Hendren said. They struck me with a dart like you. I'm not sure why they kept me alive. Our friend Sverian told us that... Our friend Sverian told us that he was a special favorite of yours, said a voice by the side of the wagon. Alva turned to see a large, muscular man. We brought him along thinking he might prove useful. One of the questions that was forming in Alva's mind had been answered. Sverian had been a traitor. Somehow he had arranged for the Lassanian camp to be invaded by stealth. I see, Alva said. And where is your friend Sverian now? He stayed behind to have some fun finishing your friend Bonson. After you passed out, we caught him like a rat in a trap. He wanted Bonson for himself, and he wanted to take his time. And then he was going to try to keep his treachery secret and stay in Lassania as a spy? No, he said he'd catch up with us when he was done. Alva smiled knowingly. He must really have taken his time. That would have been about 9 hours ago. You would have thought he would catch up by now. The large man had had the same thought hours before. He did not answer. I wouldn't bet on seeing Sverian again, Alva said with a smirk. Another question was answered. The odds that Bonson was alive were very good. I sure hope he obeyed my order instead of coming after me, Alva thought. What does Spherian or Bonson matter? The man asked. We have you. Alva simply laughed at this. Allow me to introduce myself, the man began. I already know who you are, Alva said. You do? The man asked, looking both surprised and pleased. Yeah, you're nobody, Alva said. And nobody captured the great Alva Dene? If you captured me, then yes. My suspicion is that I was captured because Spherian was a clever traitor and Matarin laid out a very clever plan. But if you're bursting to tell me your name, you may as well spit it out. I am Captain Brochen. Right, Alva said. Then he turned to Hendren. Been a long time since I went to Huron. Before you were born, I think, or maybe around the same time. I've never been there, Hendren said, matching Alva's casual tone. It'll be interesting to see it. Alva rolled onto his back with his shackled hands and feet above him and began moving his arms and legs back and forth in each direction as far as he could, periodically bowing his back somewhat. This looked quite comical, and Captain Brochen and some of his men began to laugh at him, but he was unconcerned. He wanted to keep his blood flowing as well as he could in this awkward position. While he was chained in such a way that movement was difficult, he was not chained to the side of the cage, so he could roll into different positions within his small capacity for movement. The soldiers riding on either side of the wagon began to watch him with some interest. It was quite a spectacle to see the great and feared Alva Dene rolling around and wriggling his hands and legs in a great steel cage. Perhaps the most interesting part was that he did not seem the slightest bit dismayed or even uncomfortable. He seemed oblivious to their stares as he continued to stretch and move, and he suddenly began to sing. I know a girl, she lives in the hills. She's got an ugly face, but her smile gives me thrills. Hey, 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 ho, 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 ho. His singing voice was terrible, and he could not carry the tune, but he sang loudly and seemed to be quite enjoying himself. I know a girl lives down in the valley. She's got a crooked nose, but my spirit she does rally. Hey, 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 ho, 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 ho. I know a girl lives out in the swamp. Her hand feels warm in mine, though her shoulder has a hump. I never knew you were a singer, Alva, Hendren said. I never sang much before, Alva replied, but today is a bit of a new dawn for me. He continued, I know a girl lives down by the lake. She's rounder than a ball, but she sure can bake a cake. Hey, 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 ho, 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 ho. I know a girl, she lives on a mountain. Her kiss is very fine, although she drools just like a fountain. You're in an awfully good mood today, considering your circumstances, Brochen said. I spent 40 season changes being responsible for very little beyond myself, Alva replied. Then for almost 2 season changes, I've been carrying the weight of responsibility for the lives of thousands of people. Now I've been captured. There's nothing I really have to do. This is like going on a holiday. How wonderful for you, Brochen said with a smirk. The Doc Manon has a pleasure palace waiting for you. I hope you'll enjoy your stay. Thanks, Captain. Thanks, Captain. At this, Hendren let out a small laugh. You thought that was funny, eh, boy? Asked Brochen, riding his horse around the back of the wagon to be on the same side as Hendren, who was sitting with his back against the grate. His hands and feet were shackled like Alva's, but unlike Alva, his shackles were not chained together, so he could sit more comfortably. "What precisely did you find so humorous?" Brochen asked. "Nothing, Captain," Hendren said through a smile. "Don't lie to me, boy. Now what were you laughing at?" "Well, sir, it's just that you puff out your chest like a hero when you oversaw a sneak attack, took your prey with poisoned darts rather than a sword, and you act real tough with shackled men in a steel cage. I might add that it's funny that you were so keen to tell Alva your name, and he's already forgotten it. Oh yeah, and we might add in that I'm fairly certain that the Dachmanan has no idea who you are." This time Alva laughed loudly. Brochen reddened. He looked as though he was going to reply, but Alva could see in his face that Hendren was right about the Dachmanan not knowing his name. In a sudden movement, Brochen reached inside the cage and jerked Hendren's shoulder around so that he was facing him sideways. Then he gave him a hard slap directly in the face. Hendren's nose began to bleed, but he looked directly at him with fire in his eyes. Alva's demeanor did not change. It seemed as though he had not noticed what had happened, but in a casual tone he said, Pretty tough. Whatever your name is. He embarrassed you pretty bad, so I'll give you that one. But if you touch him again, I'll kill you." "You will, eh?" Brochen asked. "Yes." Without a word, Brochen slapped Hendren again. This time blood flew from his nose, and Alva gave a smirking laugh. "You're all talk, Danae." "Everyone who knows me knows that," Alva replied, giving Hendren an almost imperceptible wink. Then he laid his head on the ground with an amused look and said, "Oops."